While Caitlin Clark is having the time of her life on the green at the Pro-Am event, the WNBA and ESPN are reportedly going crazy and rage now with Caitlin Clark.
With Caitlin Clark enjoying her off-season, hanging out with friends, making TikToks, playing golf, the WNBA continues to throw shade at her. Just because
Enjoying her off-season, hanging out with friends, making TikToks, playing golf, the WNBA continues to throw shade at her just because the golf world is treating Clark like the superstar she is. Caitlin Clark is enjoying it, and they just can't seem to handle that. It was great. I think the cool thing about that is just you felt the energy in the room and the amount of women sitting in there and so passionate about being a leader in their space, whether it was sport, whether it's business, whatever it is. I think that was what's so cool about it. And obviously, or is it something more sinister? Stay tuned till the end, because I will be exposing all the dark secrets of WNBA and ESPN behind their blind hatred of Caitlin Clark. And to be honest, I am not letting WNBA ruin my mood, because I am glad that finally Caitlin Clark is getting the treatment she deserves. But before we dive into the
WNBA, when it came to Caitlin Clark, it was a lot of like, we don't need you and we were good before and we don't like your fans and this, that, and everything. Just absolutely anything that could have that they could have done, they did. Like they did everything they could to sabotage.
Details, let's discuss Caitlin Clark and her spectacular entrance into the world of golf, because we know in the WNBA, when it came to Caitlin Clark, it was a lot of like, we don't need you and we were good before and we don't like your fans and this, that, and everything. Just absolutely anything that could have him, and they cut it done. They did like they did everything they could to sabotage their own league. Caitlin Clark's performance in the Pro-Am isn't just about a basketball player dabbling in golf, it's a cultural moment. Caitlin Clark's golf debut just made me so upset with the WNBA. It is a fault of the WNBA, because the LPGA just did everything that the WNBA should have been doing this season. They did it all correct in literally one day. That's correct. Unlike the WNBA, LPGA is doing everything right with Caitlin Clark, whether it is giving her the stage or promoting her in front of the fans. Incredible presence at the event isn't just attracting fans, it's cementing her status as a multiple phenomenon, and rightly so. But this time people are talking about Caitlin Clark, who participated in the Pro-Am and was alongside Nelly Korda and Anuka Sorum, and apparently it looks like she had a really good time. But instead of celebrating her crossover appeal, the WNBA and ESPN seem more interested in...
And last but not least, Caitlin Clark. Ladies, let me tell y'all something. You got to sit up there and pay attention to the rising tide. It lifts all boats. Her. Yeah. Right there. Right there. That girl right there. That's who deserves that. That's her. Right there. Give her credit.
Talking over her growing influence and refusing to give her the credit. And last but not least, Caitlin Clark. And ladies, let me tell y'all something, you got to sit up there and pay attention to the rising tide. It lifts all boats. HMH right there, right there, that girl right there, that's who deserve, that's her right there. Give her credit. ESPN has been notorious for throwing shade on superstars and downplaying their achievements crossed all limits. When it comes to Caitlin Clark, over the past few months, we have talked a lot about the jealousy and resentment of Caitlin Clark amongst other dumb divers in the WNBA, and the WNBA has also been exposed by several analysts for their biased coverage and their blatant mishandling of the biggest women's athlete in recent memory. At this point, it is no longer up for debate. Vast majority of WNBA players, they are jealous of Caitlin Clark. However, the resentment part of the equation, not the jealousy part, but the resentment part of the equation, it seems to be extending to women in the mainstream sports media. That is correct. The resentment and bias against Caitlin Clark seems to be extending far beyond just the WNBA, and the basketball coverage of ESPN is a prime example of this corruption. I know ESPN claims to be the proud home of the WNBA, but the supposed worldwide leader in woke, they ignored the rest of the league and they made main L focus on Caitlin Clark, because even ESPN knows people do not care about the WNBA. I know it sounds harsh. I'm sure feminists watching this video will accuse me of misogyny and toxic masculinity, but the truth does not care about your feelings. That's correct. Many of the new fans who started watching the WNBA were not fans of the WNBA, but rather the fans of Caitlin Clark. She was the one who brought in more eyeballs, SP sponsors, and TV ratings than anyone in the entire history of this Franchise, I mean, it's just more a proof of the impact in motion. As the kids say, that Caitlin Clark has she's at this LPGA golf event has me paying attention. I don't watch golf, yet these authorities seem adamant about ignoring Caitlin Clark and her dazzling status in the WNBA and women's sports. None of it addresses my point. My point is she's the golden goose. You have been clamoring for attention, you've been clamoring for more cash fare and equitable treatment, character education, Jets weight room, facilities, dollars, marketing opportunities, etc. What's the deal with ESPN? Why are they trying so hard to diminish Caitlin Clark and her role in lifting the WNBA franchise? All the other nonsense that they should never have been dealing with Monica. It is about time, Molly. I'm going to take a cue from you as you thank the audience. Yeah, let's talk about an ESPN journalist named Monica McNutter. Relatively unknown figure before she got embroiled in a deep controversy. How many of you guys have ever heard of Monica McNutt? Don't feel bad if you haven't. Monica, she has spent the last 5 years at ESPN analyzing the WNBA. According to Stephen A. Smith, she is one of the best, if not the best, analysts in pretend basketball. What's the story? Monica is an interesting personality because she is the living embodiment of what ESPN is striving for nowadays, hating Caitlin Clark. Until this year, Monica McNutt.
How many of you guys have ever heard of Monica McNutt? Don't feel bad if you haven't. Monica, she has spent the last 5 years at ESPN analyzing the WNBA. According to Stephen A. Smith, she is one of the best, if not the best, analyst in pretend basketball.
She was probably the only WNBA analyst at ESPN 5 years working at ESPN, and Monica McNutt has being completely unknown. She can spend hours in the grocery store and recognize when she boards a coach's flight at the airport. Identification is required at every checkpoint. Well, it looks like Monica and her bosses at the ESN network are not exactly happy about the popularity and fame that Caitlin's been receiving in recent times. But over the past week, Monica McNutt's career has been propelled into the mainstream. Why Caitlin Clark? The same Caitlin Clark that Monica McNutt seems to have a deep-seated resentment for. It all started last week with a heated debate on First Take. Long story short, Monica McNutt is bitter that all the attention in the WNBA is being given to Caitlin Clark, and rightfully so. She also accused Stephen A. Smith of not using his platform to promote the dump. That's correct. Monica is not only unhappy about Clark's situation, but she is also upset with Stephen A. Smith, a veteran sports analyst, because he doesn't promote the WNBA enough. Understand that, but she cannot be babied as a rookie. That's all. I'm at all right. Who talks about the WNBA? Who talks about women? Who talk about women's sports more than first? Stephen, respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to. Well, all right, we got to go. You got, so did you say, but who does more for than us? I'm talking to you. Don't do that. I'm talking to you about the power that you have. Okay, I'm talking to you. Okay. Can you believe it? Monica McNutt straight up accused Stephen Smith of sidelining WNBA in front of the whole world. And if you think this was it, well, there's more drama involved. After everything was said and done on the EPSN broadcast, Stephen wasn't going to let her get away with these blatant allegations. He fired back at Monica McNutt and her ESPN bosses, slamming them for their blind hate against Clark and her supporters like himself. What she said is blatantly false. I'm not accusing her of lying. I'm accusing her of not knowing, because she's not a liar. She's an honorable person. She must not have known the WNBA. Could I have done more? Well, guess what, Monica McNutt? I could have done less. Who's done more? Hell, a legitimate argument could be made that the WNBA wasn't doing it for the himself or themselves. Now that's got to hurt. Stephen A. Smith rocked ESPN's boat and left no stone unturned to retaliate against ESPN's lies. He made a case that the WNBA itself is not doing enough to get a proper audience, sponsors, and TV ratings. I have been covering the constant struggles of the WNBA for years now. They are constantly having to empty the porta potties in the dump because I am always on this lead. But since the passionate lecture she gave Stephen A. Smith last week, Monica McNutt, she is propelled into the mainstream. You told him, girl, put that man in his place, girl power, woohoo. And you know what? Stephen A. Smith is absolutely right. The only ones responsible for the failure and the blatant loss of the WNBA is the fault of the WNBA authorities, and the WNBA authorities only the ultimate myth of girl power for decades. Men have been blamed for the failures of women in sports. 28 years of irrelevance in the WNBA. It has been blamed on misogyny. Men don't want to see strong women succeed, when the truth is there are women who don't want to see other women succeed. Absolutely correct. The only reason that the WNBA hasn't been able to get into the mainstream is that the women athletes playing in the WNBA are too jealous and cannot see a rising star like Clark get all the attention the commissioner of the WNBA came on First, take to thank us for what we was doing for the WNBA. Who else was doing it? Where were these people? At Stephen Smith is clear on his stance, and according to him, he and other analysts have done more than these so-called WNBA feminists. And the only thing that the WNBA players have done is bicker amongst themselves for the past week. I have watched dudes like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp praise Caitlin Clark for lifting the WNBA out of irrelevance, and I have watched women like Monica McNutt and Andrea Carter try to diminish her. Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp, hey, it's Misha Shasher, and they get it. They see the big picture. They realize that this is the WNBA's only chance at success. Stephen Smith, Shannon Sharp, as well as other analysts have already realized that the WNBA can only be successful under the banner of Caitlin Clark. That is why they appreciate her and welcome her with open arms. All I'm saying is hold up, ladies. There's an opportunity here. Go for it. Let that girl shine. I'm not talking about on the court. You compete against her, you try to take her out, try to beat her. I get that part, but I'm talking about let that girl shine. Market and wise, let her get her bag, find a way to maximize off of it and create an opening for yourself so you can get yours. The message is clear. Caitlin Clark is a shining light that can remove the dark clouds over the WNBA. They realize the star power of Caitlin Clark could lift the profile of the entire league. Now, I have been struggling to understand why WNBA players and FE members of the sports media could not see the big picture. Now I'm starting to think they see the big picture, they just don't want it. Instead of throwing shade her way, the players and the authorities would do well to appreciate Caitlin Clark and her achievements on and off the basketball court. She has not only broken several records, but she has single-handedly lifted the entire landscape of women's basketball and women's sports in general.
The past week, I have watched dudes like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp praise Caitlin Clark for lifting the WNBA out of irrelevance. And I have watched women like Monica McNutt and Andrea Carter try to diminish her. Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp, hey, it's me, Shay. Shay and A. They get it. They see the big picture.